All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 2:00, a meeting of the Clean Energy Alliance. We'll go ahead and request of our Secretary of the Board to call roll.
All members are present. Do you usually announce them or no? Okay.
No, we're good. All right, and then I will ask our Solana Beach council member to lead us in the pledge.
All rise. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much, Board Member Becker. And we'll go ahead and see if we have any public comment today. We do.
Our first speaker is Gretchen Newsom.
B569, representing 3,400 unionized electricians throughout San Diego and Imperial counties. Pertaining to your proposed timeline of action items, we encourage you to add a strategic plan and an inclusive and sustainable workforce policy to your task matrix featured on page 13 of the agenda packet. And hopefully, perhaps these items could be developed and addressed in the second quarter of 2020. And other than that, just thank you for your continued effort on this regard. Take care.
Next speaker is Dinah Willier.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Dinah Willier, Public Affairs Manager with San Diego Gas and Electric, and I'm here on behalf of our company as well as with Katie Scanlon, my colleague who is normally your contact here, who's unable to attend today. But I am going to read from my comments just so I don't miss anything. SDG&E and CEA met in January to discuss the replacement of our customer information system known as Envision. SDG&E is working diligently to meet the desired launch timelines outlined in the CEA implementation plan, while also being mindful of the fact that there may be unforeseen challenges ahead of us. While we feel confident about our progress on this point, the Envision project, SDG&E's CPUC-approved replacement of its customer information system, the technology that enables SDG&E to bill customers on its behalf and that of the CEA, the Envision project will be moving through a critical testing period this year that will inform the timing. SDG&E will continue to work very closely with CEA by setting up biweekly calls, etc., through the Envision launch and critical stabilization period. Our mutual end goal of meeting the desired timeline outlined in CEA's implementation plan will continue to remain a top priority for SDG&E. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Ebba Selling.
Hi. Sorry, there's two of us, but my name is so difficult in Swedish, so we just wrote down the easiest one. I'm Emily Rogersgeld, and you?
I'm Ebba Selling.
And we're from the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce in San Diego. And we were invited here just to tell you all a little bit about our organization. So we're just going to do that for a brief moment. We are an organization based in Pacific Beach, San Diego, and we are so the Swedish American Chamber holds 20 different chambers throughout the U.S., and here in San Diego, our focuses are on clean tech and life science industry. And we have about 32 corporate members and 13 strategic partners, and about half of these corporate members are in the clean tech industry or life science industry.
Yes. And I work with our events and focus on our clean tech industry here in San Diego. And our biggest annual event is the Green Connections that we host every year in November. And this year will be our 9th edition. So the Green Connection invites decision makers, visionaries, other people in the industry from the Southern California region and Nordic countries, as Sweden is one of the global leaders within clean tech, where we discuss new ideas, technologies, And right now, we're looking for new partners and speakers and sponsors within the renewable energy, smart building, and energy storage.
And feel free to contact us if you have any tips or advice to how we can make the Green Connection conference even better. Thank you.
And our last public comment is Lane Sharman.
Good afternoon. I'm here to represent the Center for Community Energy, a new organization that is the successor organization to the San Diego Energy District. And we're having a conference on June the 5th devoted to community energy and how community energy operates, procures, develops, and finds those best practices that have been developed and are developing. And so I just want to invite everyone in the audience to reserve June the 5th as a conference date devoted to exactly what we're trying to do here, which is to create the very best CCA that we can. And all of those challenges and all of the opportunities for local development, for local control, for decarbonization. These are the topics that we're going to explore with many of the thought leaders from throughout the state of California. And so I want to thank everybody for their time and attention. I want to thank Ebba and Amelie for being a part of the influencing factors from Europe that are helping to drive this this whole effort towards greater control over our energy destiny. So thanks very much.
Hello.
We want to welcome Greg to the meeting, Stefanovic, our legal counsel.
Sorry for the delay there. Get through it.
Okay, and that's the final public?
That was all.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then we'll go on to any board comments or announcements.
None for me.
Okay. And no presentations. So we'll go on to the approval of the minutes. This will be the approval of the minutes of the special meeting held November 19th, 2019, and the minutes of the regular meeting held December 19th, 2019. It looks like we've got Board Member Haviland learning the voting system almost immediately, making a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote.
So, may I clarify something?
Certainly.
I was moving approval of the minutes, but I pushed the button before I realized how to actually enter that in. So do you say the motion and then press it? Okay.
That's fine.
So I want to make sure we're clear on our motion. So how do you do that?
Well, it shows up on the board, and
Okay.
when you announce it. So if you announce it, and then I will record it.
Okay, so maybe we should
appreciate.
Yeah,
maybe
and then
we
it goes
should
into the
appreciate the
system.
learning curve.
maybe we should continue to use vocal motions, and then we can also do that so that we.
That's okay. I'm being slow. I think
You are actually being fast.
okay.
So we'll do both. How's that? Is that what typically happens?
Well, actually, sometimes the mayor likes us to push request to speak and then make the motion, push the motion button.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I'm not-
That makes sense.
Okay.
So we're clear on our
I don't think we're
motions.
fighting over who's first and second. So.
No.
But well done. Okay.
Thank you.
So that motion was approved. Minutes are approved unanimously. Okay. So we'll go ahead and go on to new business. Item 1, and this is the interim CEO update. Barbara?
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. I think it's on. I'm happy to report that we are staying on time with all of our tasks that have been outlined that we need to complete as part of our registration and certification of our community choice aggregation program and targeted launch in May 2021. At today's meeting, we have a number of items for the board's consideration that will continue our progress and meeting our timeline. It wasn't in the written report, but in terms of our communication and outreach, just this week, our e-blast has gone live. And those interested in signing up can go to the Clean Energy Alliance website at thecleanenergyalliance.org and sign up for the e-blast to receive updates and information with regards to what's happening with the Clean Energy Alliance. Our implementation plan was submitted to the California Public Utilities Commission on December the 23rd. That was subsequent to the board approving the implementation plan and statement of intent. Our implementation plan, the CEA implementation, is unique in that Solana Energy Alliance is an operating CCA. It's a city enterprise CCA that will be winding down that program, and its customers will then transition to Clean Energy Alliance as part of the JPA. This is unique in that it has yet to have happened in the state. And due to that, in speaking with our Regulatory Affairs Counsel, Ty Tosdahl, we recommend that we plan an in-person meeting to the PUC Energy Division staff to discuss the transition, what we anticipate the impact to customers will be, how we will address communicating with the customers and mitigating or minimizing any negative impacts, and then make ourselves available to answer questions of the board. We would recommend that we have one board member, and in speaking with our general counsel, Greg Stefanisic, we can only have one board member attend that meeting. Also, the interim CEO, Ty Tosdahl, and then we would have member agency staff there as well. And we will also take the opportunity to speak to the Energy Division with regards to our plans and our goals and objectives for Clean Energy Alliance and the priorities that we have with regards to establishing that program in San Diego. So we would request that the board select one of its members to represent Clean Energy Alliance at that meeting. It is yet to be scheduled because we've been waiting to see who would be in attendance and coordinate schedules and calendars. In terms of would you like me to move on to the next topic, or would you prefer to take care of that now?
I think we can continue, and then we can come back
perfect.
to it.
In terms of expansion of Clean Energy Alliance and talking to our neighboring cities about the possibilities of joining Clean Energy Alliance, at its last board meeting, the board did request that we continue open communication with agencies in the area that may be interested in creating a CCA and possibly joining Clean Energy Alliance, specifically those that have feasibility studies that are already completed. Clean Energy Alliance was invited to speak at the South Orange County Community Choice Alliance Workshop, which is happening today. And Jason Haber and Greg Wade are there at that meeting now, talking about their experiences with regards to establishing the CCA, processes to be followed, and opportunities for partnerships and potential opportunities to work together. In addition, we've recently learned that the cities of Escondido, Vista, and San Marcos have engaged a consultant to prepare a feasibility study for a JPA with those cities operating a CCA. And we have reached out to that group and indicated our interest and potential of them joining should it work out. And we'll continue speaking with them as they work through their CCA feasibility process. We've also reached out and are maintaining communication with the County of San Diego and Oceanside with regards to the potential of those agencies joining. And so we're working towards keeping those communications open in order to enable the timeline of the October deadline should there be interest in joining Clean Energy Alliance. I'd like to turn it over to Ty Tosdahl. He has his regulatory affairs update for the board.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. I just wanted to report on a few items that are taking place at the Public Utilities Commission right now. SDG&E proposed to implement a minimum bill as part of its rate design window application that was proposed last year, and they were seeking a 400% increase in that minimum bill from around $10 and change to $38.19 per month. And this would have penalized self-generators, rooftop solar customers, and also would have penalized customers with low usage, and it would have been charged CCA customers as well. And so I'm pleased to announce that the Commission issued a proposed decision denying that proposal, and instead adopting a minimum bill of around $10.14 per month. Now, this is a proposed decision, so it's not been finalized yet. However, looking at the decision, the Commission set forth a number of reasons, including lack of evidence, lack of compliance with the previous Commission decision that really emphasizes volumetric rates, and also noted that the minimum bill level was out of step with the other utilities who have minimum bills around $10. So we expect this decision to ultimately be adopted, although no guarantees. The soonest that would be adopted would be at the Commission's March 12 meeting. So wanted to report back about that. At this time, we don't have any recommendation about that. Again, because it appears that it will be adopted. So, also wanted to report back about some upcoming items. As you know, there is an ongoing proceeding addressing the power charge and difference adjustment and the methodology that's used to set that charge each year. During this phase of the proceeding, different aspects of the charge were broken up into working groups, and working group 3 is dealing with portfolio optimization, which means figuring out ways to address ways to improve the utility portfolio management, including possibly assigning contracts to CCA programs, potentially allocating power and power attributes to CCA programs. The report is scheduled to come out on February 21st. And so we will shortly here, it's tomorrow, we will have an opportunity to see what's contained in it, and we'll report back about that. The discussions have been confidential so far, so don't want to share that in this public setting. But when the report comes out, it will have both consensus items that were agreed upon by the working group, which will most likely be adopted by the Commission, although, again, no guarantees. And it will also have non-consensus items that the Commission will have to decide. And so the report will set forth what those consensus items are and what those non-consensus items are. So there'll be a comment period, and so we will report back about that. I do want to emphasize the ultimate decision that's adopted by the Commission here will have an impact on procurement for CEA, in the sense that it will provide opportunities, most likely provide opportunities for CEA to supply power through one of the processes that's outlined there. So it's something that is critical for the power services team to take a close look at and be engaged with. Lastly, we have also another upcoming item. You may know that there is a proceeding underway right now dealing with the expansion of direct access. There was a piece of legislation, Senate Bill 237, that was passed that set forth a discrete level of additional DA that would be permitted. That has been authorized by the Commission, went forward. The Commission is now looking at a second phase. Their Energy Division at the Commission is preparing a report that's going to be coming out on March 9th. And so we will get a sense of where the Energy Division's headed with that, and hopefully whether there's going to be an additional expansion of DA that's recommended, and if so, what magnitude. Hopefully we'll get a sense of what the constraints are and what the process is going forward, as well as a timetable. So we will report back about that as well. As you know, there are a number of other regulatory proceedings underway, but these being the most critical, I want to report back to you about these. And so happy to take any questions about them or other things that are happening. Ms. Schumacher, yes.
Thank you very much. I do have a question. Okay. When you were discussing the impacts for procurement with the supply to power, if those are assigned to any of the CCAs, would the types of power supply that we've established be looked at by the PUC in those assignments? Say there's restrictions on RECs, for instance, and would the PUC respect that, or would they just assign without regard?
I think we're going to have to wait until the proceeding gets a little farther along for that, but I think that so this report, I think, will be telling in that respect. Certainly the PUC is not looking at this through the lens of CCA program criteria, individual CCA program criteria. So that's not something that I anticipate to be part of their decision or part of this report either. But in terms of whether there are actual conflicts between CCA program procurement criteria and the decision that's ultimately adopted, we'll have to wait and see. We'll certainly pay close attention to that, given your question.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any additional questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And that concludes our update. We're happy to answer any other questions or have any other conversation that you have with regards to the update.
Okay. Thank you very much. And it looks like we have Ms. Becker.
Thank you, Barbara. I wanted to go back to your suggestion of meeting face-to-face with the PUC, and I appreciate that suggestion and know that with SEA, we did not do that, and it would have been a good idea because we were the smallest CCA, a one-city CCA, and the first in San Diego and San Diego County and the first in SDG&E territory. So it probably would have been a good idea, not that it turned out fine, and we probably because we had the same implementation plan that they've seen before, right? They've seen 19 or 20 of them. But I do see that in our case now, our implementation plan, especially for SEA, is an amendment. So I do feel it's important to meet with them face to face, probably to tell them the why of this and to reassure them that in essence, SEA has always said that we, from the start, that we were going to partner with other cities. So this is exactly what we foresaw happening. And so this is what we wanted to happen, and just a reassurance that this is, like we do have this handled. This is exactly what we wanted. We're transitioning and explain that process. We know what we're doing. So I think that is an excellent idea to be able to make sure that they know that this is something we're doing to enhance our residents. This is going to be beneficial for our residents. We're joining something larger for the economies of scale, and we are going to hopefully have our reserves built up a lot faster than being a small CCA. So I think all of that is good since this is something so unique. This will be the first time that they've seen this amendment to an implementation plan, I'm imagining. So I think that's good. Our goals are exactly the same. We're not changing any of those environmental goals, but we are just actually enhancing our product to our residents. So again, I think that is an excellent idea, and I think I'm imagining it's a one-day trip up and back, and so I would be honored and I would be willing to go if you would like to appoint me to go. So thanks.
I support Board Member Becker representing us at this meeting with the CPUC. That was a good sales pitch. It worked. And I had a question about the meeting that's going on in Orange County today. Do you know if we're the only San Diego CEA that's up there pitching to the Orange County groups, or do you know if the San Diego JPA also is up there wooing them.
I'm looking to Dan King because I didn't actually see the request.
Yeah, it's my understanding that there's a representative from the Climate Action Campaign that's going to be up there talking, but it may be more on the why and why they should be considering a CCA. I don't know that there's somebody from the San Diego CCA that's going to be there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, maybe we can continue to have a conversation within the context of the. I would also be willing to support Board Member Becker in that capacity. My concern is that the meeting doesn't become solely about Solana Beach, but that we're really able to help craft an agenda that, if we're going to take the opportunity to go to the PUC and meet with them directly, that we're able to piggyback on the meeting for the purposes of C and tackle anything about the Clean Energy Alliance that we may also want to clarify. Maybe that's something that we can help, since the meeting has not yet been scheduled. If there's a potential for some information or at least a discussion item to come back during our next agenda, during our next meeting, so that we as a board can actually help to craft the agenda as you go up there to speak with them. So if there's any information.
I'm just wondering if it would be more important to sort of get up there while the implementation plan is still on their desk. And that's what I'm wondering.
The thought was that we go as early in March as possible. And we were thinking likely it would be before our next board meeting, with our board meetings just being once a month, because the implementation plans need to be the review and certification needs to be done within 90 days, and that 90-day clock ends with a December 23rd submittal right around March the 23rd. So it would be very close to shortly the week after our board meeting. I'm not sure that would provide sufficient time. I don't know if it's possible at this meeting to be able to receive some input and about what you'd like to have shared. And we do, in thinking through what we would be discussing, what I would see is that we would make sure that we had clearly on there the goals that have been established as part of the JPA document and are also confirmed in our implementation plan, and speak about the communities and the climate action plan goals of the communities and how this is supportive of that.
Okay, so just moving forward, I think it would be good for us to be able to, given the length of time between meetings, potentially for us to be able to, as a board, have conversations about things that we could potentially. I know that this is a very crunched timeline, sure. But for us to be able to give consideration and deliberation to items like this, because again, if we're going to go up to the PUC on this, I think it's important for us to be able to also talk about the CEA in a way that is thoughtful. So can you pull up the slide that is specific to this item?
Yeah, and I'll add, this does not have to be our only opportunity to go. We can make an appointment to go again. And honestly, I think the more communication that we have with the Energy Division, the PUC, I think is better. And so I would encourage that we schedule another time to go up and speak to them again.
I certainly understand that, Barbara, but that also costs money. So I want to make sure that we're efficient with our funds and our time. So with the Solana Energy Alliance transitioning customers to CEA, one of the things that I would be very interested in getting direct feedback from the PUC on is actually the flexibility of the program, the JPA agreement. So what that might look like for them from their perspective, getting some feedback on the flexibility component. So with each of the individual communities being able to take excess revenues back, one of the key questions that I think it's important for us to understand is how we would be able to use those excess revenues at the local level once they're redistributed, if they're redistributed. So that's something that we had contemplated in the JPA, but we don't know whether or not there's going to be feedback there from the PUC. And I know that that's unique to our JPA. So I would really love direct feedback on that. And then whether or not, for instance, we would need to have a pre-established list of local municipal projects that are pre-authorized for each of the cities to use the excess revenues from the JPA, and what the parameters of that might be, if that is indeed the case. Are there any other agenda items?
I would just be curious from Barb, this is not something that the PUC has to tell us how to do it, though, right? They're not. Are you saying we need to ask them how they'd like to see us do this, or?
Given this is a new type of JPA agreement that does contemplate something that does have certain restrictions around how we can use the excess revenues, I would imagine, I would like to get the PUC's position on this, and I think that having that conversation within the parameters of what I just outlined, that would be.
Ty might be a good person to clarify.
The commission does not have an oversight role that extends into that area. So they are not going to police the use of funds in that fashion. I think that your questions are excellent questions, and I think they're probably questions for Mr. Simonovich and the general counsel of each of the participating cities. Because the commission does not have first of all, while they do have substantial amount of information about the programs and they do police their own requirements, they do not have oversight over the budget, and they do not have oversight over the use of funds. As long as their requirements are being met, they're satisfied. So the actual JPA agreement is not something that they scrutinize. And the use of funding by member cities is not something that is under PUC jurisdiction.
So you said the JPA is not scrutinized, but the JPA agreement is, correct?
No, the JPA agreement is not something that falls under direct commission jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just concur with what Ty just mentioned here. That is correct. So our budgeting and what type of programs we decide to implement locally are strictly going to be a local option and do not have any CPUC oversight.
Thank you.
Which I think is good news.
Yeah.
It is, but I also think it's very, I think we need to be cautious because we wouldn't want anybody to think that the excess revenues could just directly go into the general funds.
Understood.
Right. So there are parameters that
there are absolutely parameters.
Right.
There are applicable laws. There are the agreements also set forth various requirements that need to be followed.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's stuff that we would decide, and so I'm envisioning this PUC is a visit to introduce ourselves and to reassure them of our goals, and I don't even think they're in a position really to deny our implementation plan, but just, this is something different, and there could be calling into question at some point. So I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Barb. I mean, this is just sort of a way to introduce that. And I focused a little bit too much on SEA, but I do realize there's other points, and I would be happy to go through all of those too, the goals and everything set forth. And I would not just limit it to that, but I just think that this is just an introductory thing, and they're not the ones that we're going to be asking them questions. I think that they might have questions for us, is my understanding.
Is there any indication that is the case? I'm kind of wondering about the origin of this suggestion.
I have not yet heard from them, other than confirming that they have received them both and confirming that Solana Energy Alliance will be winding down. However, I do anticipate that there could be questions. For example, later in the agenda, the board is being asked to consider approval of the draft customer notice that would be submitted to the PUC for review and approval. That notice, as it's currently written, is only applicable to Carlsbad and Del Mar customers because they those customers are leaving San Diego Gas and Electric service. Solana Energy Alliance customers have already had that process and received those notices at the point of time when they launched. And so the PUC Public Advisor's Office, I anticipate, will have questions with regards to how will customers be notified, what type of notifications will they have, and just have those types of questions. And there's also reporting, regulatory compliance reports and procurements that as we move towards the transition, the procurement requirements will cross the time periods beyond May, and the PUC will likely have questions about how we anticipate addressing that overlap and what kind of steps we're taking to ensure regulatory compliance of both agencies. Because we'll have Clean Energy Alliance that is moving towards implementation and has regulatory requirements, and Solana Energy Alliance will have those same continuing requirements until they transition and move the customers under Clean Energy Alliance.
Thank you very much.
And Barb, you had one of these meetings with them when you were starting the Lancaster CCA. Is that correct? Something similar? Is that where you're sort of... Oh, there's Ty. Was it Ty or...
Lancaster did have a group that went to the PUC to meet with PUC Energy Division staff. They were the third CCA to launch and the first that launched as a city-run enterprise. And so there they were, again, unique and different, and we took the opportunity to go and answer questions, which they did have with regards to that.
And just the goal is to make sure that the implementation plan is adopted. Is that correct?
We would like to answer any questions that they may have and be proactive in meeting with them and answering questions.
Okay.
Sorry to butt in again.
Yes, please.
if I may, just in response to Ms. Schumacher's questions, it is customary for a new CCA program to sort of make a visit to the Public Utilities Commission. So that's something that many of the programs have done. And there are many reasons for that. I think there are particularly good reasons for us here in San Diego to be doing this in the San Diego area. The commission is a very busy place. They have a very large, portfolio of responsibility, if you will. The Northern California CCA programs have much closer proximity to the commission, and they're there in person all the time. It's much harder for us to do that, more expensive for us to do it. And so it is helpful, even in this day and age, to put a face to a name, to raise the issues, give the background. We'll be working with the Energy Division at the commission, for the duration of the program's lifetime. So it's good to start building those relationships, make an introduction, have an impact right off the bat. So those are some other reasons to go forward.
Ms. Haviland.
I just had a question for Barb as far as the timing of potential future meetings with the CPUC. Is there a particular milestone or a particular point in our progression as a JPA where you think it's going to be appropriate and advantageous for us to go back to the CPUC?
That I'm aware of, there's not a typical timeline or process or key time periods in implementation when CCA would go. I think we can determine that, for example, when we've had our workshop and maybe have fine-tuned some of our programs or goals for the coming year that we would want to talk to them about and share with them, then that might make sense for us to, at that point, schedule, another time in the summer to go. But there isn't a particular set schedule that CCAs go. They may go when there's a particular proceeding that impacts them that they may want to speak to the commission about. So it just depends on what's happening with regards to on the regulatory front, but also from our pragmatic side.
Okay. So if we determine there's some reason that justifies the cost of this,
Correct.
That would instigate it, but there isn't anything that you can point to that is a typical reason why a new JPA would go up there. Okay.
Correct.
On that front, thank you for that question, Ms. Haviland. What is the cost associated with this? Typically, we get fiscal impact.
It would be a one-day trip, so it would be the cost of an airline ticket up and back. So, and typically you can use, if we fly into Oakland, it's BART is the public transportation that you can take. It's within a couple of blocks of the commission office and a short walk, so it's not an expensive undertaking to.
I certainly understand that. I with these things, I think I have two concerns, and then I'll close discussion and we can vote on it. Two concerns. The first is that any agenda item that gets placed on the agenda needs to come from the board as a full board, and I really want to make sure that that is the case. Two, that any additional costs, even if they're small, that we calculate the fiscal impacts for our future customers and for CEA. And with that, I'll hear a motion to approve Board Member Becker as the.
I just want to ask a question. I wasn't quite understood what you meant. The agenda item coming from the full board.
Yeah.
As opposed to who? As opposed to coming from our CEO?
I need to make sure that the agenda items that are coming forward, I am very concerned about agenda items coming forward that seem to come from SEA. And because there's crossover, there's a little bit of blurring of the lines between the CEO, the interim CEO, and SEA. I want to make sure that that when items are brought forward, it's just very clear that they're coming for the benefit of.
But this actually is not even coming from SEA, and it's not benefiting SEA. This actually, I see this as benefiting the CEA because that is where we've got the implementation plan for the CEA. So my concern is making sure that that happens and that's approved. If they have a question on that, then we're in trouble. So this in no point in time I don't see as benefiting CEA, and actually I don't know how it would come from CEA. I mean, SEA. Yeah. I don't understand.
I just need to. I just need to make sure that that's the case moving forward. So I'll go ahead and call for the vote. I'll make the motion. And we'll vote. All right. And then I'd like to invite Ms. Newsom back up to the podium. There were two things that you requested of us during public comment. You said you'd requested the strategic plan, and then my apologies, you said an inclusive worker
for an inclusive and sustainable workforce policy to be developed as part of the tasks that are lined out here on page 13 for that to be added in.
Okay. So both of those things that I would move be added to our workshop. And if you had that written down, Ms. Newsom, if you could hand it to the clerk, and we can, if the board would like to add those to as discussion items for our workshop. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Go ahead and call the vote. Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions on or discussion items for our agenda item 1? All right, we'll go ahead, and that is receiving the report. We've taken action, and we'll move on to item 2. So we'll do a request for proposal for permanent banking services and credit solution selection.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. At its board meeting on November the 19th, the board authorized a request for proposal to be issued for permanent banking services and a credit solution. The RFP was issued on January the 15th with responses due on February the 7th, 2020. We received 4 responses from that request for proposal process. The 4 banks that responded were Bank of California, JP Morgan, MUFG Union Bank, and River City Bank. The request for proposal had 2 parts, but banks could choose to respond on either either one or both. Bank of California responded to only the banking services. The other three did respond to both portions. Of the four banks, Bank of California did not have any prior CCA experience with banking services. JP Morgan and Union Bank did have prior experience for providing credit to operating CCAs, but not banking. And River City Bank did have experience with both of those services. In evaluating the proposals, we looked at the ability or willingness for the banks to operate in what we foresee would be a banking situation with a lockbox. We anticipate that because we are a new CCA that don't have reserves, that energy suppliers may be open and looking to Clean Energy Alliance to pledge the revenues coming into its lockbox as security for future energy purchases. With that, we were looking for a bank that either has experience or has a willingness to be a counterparty to that agreement. Of those three banks, only River City Bank had that prior experience and willingness to be a party to those particular agreements, and they're very specialized agreements. Based on the review, we do recommend River City Bank to provide the banking services portion of the RFP to Clean Energy Alliance. In terms of the credit solution, we did have the three banks that offered a proposal to provide a credit solution for our next year's startup costs. At this point, the interim treasurer, Marie Bercuti, and I recommend that the board direct us to continue looking at the responses to credit solution and also look at other opportunities that we may have for funding of our startup and come back in April with a package that addresses the needs, the projected needs for our funds in the coming year and startup costs. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board? Okay. If there are no questions, is there someone who's ready to make a motion?
I would move staff recommendation that we approve River City Bank as our banking services and that we come back with credit solution. Is that anything?
Is there a second to that motion?
We do have a second. Do we, Mr. Stepanovich, do we need to take each of these recommendations one at a time? Or can
we could actually, we can combine the recommendations. If there's concurrence on the three items, that would be fine.
Okay. So if we have concurrence on all three items? Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll go ahead and call the vote. Okay. And we have a unanimous approval.
Okay. I would like to add that we do have Rosa Kuchicha from River City Bank, if you would like to have her introduce herself.
Hi, as Barbara mentioned, I'm Rosa Kuchicha with River City Bank. I manage our Clean Energy Division. We're very delighted and excited to be working with you guys. I've had the pleasure of working with Greg, with SIA prior to this, and we're very excited to be working with you. So I'm here. If you have any questions about anything, I'm happy to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item 3. Which is the approve the selection of Clean Energy Alliance technical consultant.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. At its board meeting of January the 16th, 2020, the board did authorize a request for qualifications to be issued for technical consultant services. The RFP was subsequently issued on January the 21st, with responses due on February the 10th. The scope of required services requested in that RFQ included preparation of Clean Energy Alliance's integrated resource plan, an initial renewable portfolio standards procurement plan, year-ahead resource adequacy forecast, development of a financial pro forma, and also support in San Diego Gas and Electric rate and rate proceeding analysis. The RFQ had responses from 6 consultants. They included EES Consulting, MRW, Pacific Energy Advisors, Resource Renewables, Siemens, and Z Global. Of those responses, upon review of the proposals, the 2 firms that were selected to be further evaluated and interviewed were EES Consulting and Pacific Energy Advisors. That selection was based on having relevant experience providing those services to CCAs, particularly for CCAs who are just looking to launch and are needing to be compliant with new requirements to the PUC. EES Consulting is providing similar services to 3 CCAs in California. They are providing services to 3 new CCAs. They had proposed a single project team member, and that team member would be supported from a project lead and then 1 backup, and that single person would be responsible for the 3 CCAs as well as Clean Energy Alliance. The Pacific Energy Advisors proposal, they are currently providing some similar services to 11 CCAs in California, including having performed these services on behalf of newly launching CCAs. Their proposal included a project team of 6 staff, each of whom are cross-trained to provide overlap and backup should it be needed in performing those tasks and ensuring that we do meet the specific timeline that's required. Of the fees that were proposed, EES Consulting, their total fees for all of the services were proposed at $106,000. $54,000 of that would be projected to be paid in the current fiscal year. And Pacific Energy Advisors' total estimated fees were $100,000 with $75,000 in the current fiscal year. There are sufficient funds that were included in the fiscal year 2019-20 budget that the board has previously approved. Our recommendation to the board is that you approve the selection of Pacific Energy Advisors to provide technical consulting services to Clean Energy Alliance and authorize the interim CEO to execute an agreement for technical services for an amount not to exceed $75,000 through the current fiscal year, June 30, 2020, and with an option to extend through fiscal year 2021 for an additional $25,000. That would be subject to the General Counsel approval. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, I do. The mode through which our staff was choosing amongst the applications was based on a short-term contract, correct? And how many months?
That's correct. It was the initial term was to match the current fiscal year and budget we have available, and also was for the timeline for the tasks that are due before June 30th related to our initial implementation and CCA registration.
Can you talk me through what would be the next steps after that? The contract would end, and I would imagine that we would need technical consultants beyond that.
Yeah, so the contract would be written where the board would have the ability to extend if they're happy with the services being provided. We could also perform another request for qualifications process, seeking services for additional services that would be needed going into the new fiscal year.
Okay, so given there were some of the RFQs submitted that do have longer term experience, why were they removed?
The experience that they reflected in their request for qualifications response were not specifically relevant to the required scope of services we're needing at this point in time, and we were looking for consultants that had that specific experience.
But some of them did. So this, for instance, Siemens or any of the other RFQs, you're saying that they don't have that experience at all, or
some, but not all. We were looking for a consultant that could perform all of the services, so that you're not having different consultants interpreting and analyzing our data, and potentially not being consistent in forecasting, for example, how much demand or usage we're going to have in the future, and the coordination between several consultants performing the different tasks could be a little challenging, I think, and I think there's some efficiencies in having a single consultant perform all of those functions and those reports. That's typically what you see for these types of services.
And what's the deadline for getting these folks on board?
We have our first deadline is the Year Ahead Resource Adequacy, which is due in April 2020. So we would want to get them on board as soon as possible so they can begin working on that. We did just receive yesterday our historical usage data upon which they can perform the analysis needed to develop that report. That's due to the PUC at the end of April.
Okay, and then with the contract that would be developed, talk to me about the process. Once the contract ends, would it come back to the board for review to see whether or not we would, as a board, decide to continue the contract, or would it be decided administratively?
That would be a board decision.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any additional questions, or we'd like to move? All right.
I just wanted to say, I think for a small JPA like our CCA like ours, it's really important to have this breadth of experience. And so I am supportive of the staff recommendation and ready to make a motion if.
Excellent. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I move approve approve selection of Pacific Energy Advisors to provide technical consulting services to the Clean Energy Alliance and authorize the interim chief executive officer to execute an agreement for technical consulting services for an amount not to exceed $75,000 through June 30th, 2020, with the option to extend through fiscal year 2021 for an additional amount of $25,000 subject to general counsel approval.
Okay, and a second by Ms. Becker, and we'll go ahead and vote. And it passes unanimously. We'll move on to item 4.
Chair Schumacher, we do have Kirby Dussel and Donna Stein from Pacific Energy Advisors, if you would like to have them introduced.
Oh, wonderful. If in the future, maybe we can, if there are guests that we can ask questions of prior to us voting, that'd be amazing. Come on up.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kirby Dussel with Pacific Energy Advisors, and as Barbara mentioned, Donna Stein is also here with me today. She's part of our team and also happens to live in Solana Beach. So I just wanted you all to know that. She's been with us for about 1.5 years now, but prior to that, she was with Shell Energy North America, located just down the road here, for about 15 years' time. So I think you'll find that amongst our team, we've got a lot of experience in the electric utility industry, and in particular with CCAs, and we're looking forward to this opportunity. I'm eager to be of assistance, and Barbara can put you in touch with us if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and we'll go ahead and move on to item 4, which is the selection of Clean Energy Alliance Data Manager and Call Center Services.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. Item number 4 before you for consideration is the results of request for proposal 2020-003 Data Management and Call Center Services. At its meeting of January the 16th, 2020, the board did authorize the issuance of the RFP. The RFP was issued on January 21st with responses due February the 10th. The data management services that were requested in the RFP include working with CEA and SD San Diego Gas and Electric for planning and implementing the CCA program. And we are requesting these services early due to the planned system replacement that the representative from SDG&E spoke about. We do anticipate and want to work with SDG&E as they had indicated is important, and that data manager will be key in those testing and working with the program. They would be responsible for any pre-launch and all pre-launch testing of transactions between SDG&E and Clean Energy Alliance and their data manager. They would, once we're operational, transact with SDG&E for customer information, billing, and payment processing. They would be responsible for resolving billing issues with SDG&E and to ensure timely billing of our charges. They also would maintain our customer database for billing and payment history. The RFP requested call center services. This includes setting up the call scripting for representatives to speak from when the calls come in and developing an interactive voice response system. They would provide and maintain a customer relationship management database system, provide staffing for the CEA call center, respond to customer inquiries on our programs and billing, and then process requests from customers to opt up to product services or opt out of the program. They would be the voice of CEA. They would be responsible for receiving those calls. We did receive responses from 3 separate consultants, data managers. They included Calpine Energy Solutions, EDMS, and GridX. Of those 3, Calpine Energy Solutions currently provides these same services to 15 CCAs operating in California. EDMS does provide these services to 1 operating CCA, and GridX also to 1 operating CCA. In evaluating the proposals and in follow-up interviews with the 3 firms, the staff and I had determined that with the current environment and risks associated with the system replacement that SDG&E will undergoing, they're currently targeting a launch of January 2021 and our implementation in May of 2021, that Calpine Energy Solutions provided the strongest level of experience and expertise that could work through any particular issues that might come up or provide workarounds for us in order to help ensure a good customer experience and a smooth transition for our customers. We do have representatives here from Calpine, should you have questions of them. Based on that, our recommendation is to approve the selection of Calpine Energy Solutions to provide data management and call center services to Clean Energy Alliance, and authorize the interim chief executive officer to execute an agreement for data manager and call center services for an amount not to exceed $720,000 per year for a period of 5 years, subject to general counsel approval. I do want to stress that there are no fees that are charged by Calpine Energy Solutions until we are actually up and running and serving customers and have revenue. So the work that they will do before we're launched in terms of testing and setup and supporting our startup are all done without any charges. And that's $720,000 per year starts after we're serving customers.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Go ahead.
I do think that there will be quite a bit of work that will need to be done before we launch because of what SDG&E has indicated that the bill changing. So they're ready to do that for us. They're ready to jump in and learn the billing system and have it all ready to go for May 2021.
They currently are providing these services in SDG&E territory, so they are currently familiar with SDG&E. They've also already been in touch with SDG&E with regards to their billing system replacement and started working on testing and working with them on transactions.
Okay.
So they would be ready, make sure we're ready.
And I understand that they are giving us a bit of a discount for a larger CCA. Is that correct?
The fees as proposed are lower than what Solana Energy Alliance fees are. They've reevaluated how they develop their fees and their pricing structure, and we will benefit. Clean Energy Alliance benefits from that new pricing structure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? Do we have a public speaker?
Our public speaker is Dennis Vermette.
And then maybe after that we can ask Mr. Brock to come up and give us a statement. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dennis Vermette. I am president of EDMS. I'm one of the companies that proposed. I guess obviously we're disappointed to hear that we were not recommended, but I do want to say that we're based here in San Diego. We're just down the street. From a pricing standpoint, we thought we put in a very competitive bid. It was savings of $129,000 a year with a 5-year savings projection of just over $648,000 for the CCA. As mentioned, we only have one CCA that we provide services to, although we have been working with San Diego Gas and Electric on the EDI front since 2001, since direct access opened up. We also, even from just onboarding a new system, we actually work with utilities across the nation. We can onboard any new utility within 2.5 weeks. Our systems have been upgraded to be able to manage that kind of speed of EDI transactions. So anyway, we're here to help you guys. I'm again disappointed that we're not recommended, but anyway, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Schumacher and fellow board members. My name is Josh Brock. I'm a director of CCA Client Services for Calpine Energy Solutions. And we're just excited to have the opportunity to serve you. The team has been doing extensive work over the last 2 years with SDG&E. I was just texting back and forth with the team over there, and even as we speak, we're working on the various system testing that's going to be required to launch Clean Energy Alliance when the time comes. And we also, there's the direct services to which you ask of us, but also as a local company and as individuals like myself and the people represented here today, we're extremely passionate about this space. We understand what it means to be serving a CCA. We understand what it means to be part of the public trust. As your interim CCA noted, we are the voice of you for a lot of your customers, and we know that that intrinsically comes with being able to speak on your behalf and speak in the way that a public entity should be speaking and representing that. We value that. That is a core part of what we do. And so we're extremely excited and quite frankly feel blessed to be able to serve this at a local level and look forward to working with all of you, should you believe so.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Question, real quick, Board Member Haviland.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to get a sense from you. You've been working with SDG&E for some time now. Can you give me an example of the types of things that you've had to overcome in that integration process with SDG&E, and what sort of challenges you anticipate with the upgrade to their billing system?
Absolutely. So the challenges have come in different waves. When we were supporting Solana Energy Alliance with their launch, the challenges came from a very antiquated system running on a programming language that it's almost impossible to find people who even use that language anymore. And so the way the system is supposed to work, for example, is the utility will tell you, here's all your customers that are going to be enrolling. We had to flip that in order to get SDG&E to be able to support it. So we got a list of all the customers and then sent transactions to SDG&E and say, here's all the customers that you need to switch over in your system. Just as one example on ways that we had to work with them around their current legacy system. What we're working on right now in this transition to, they're moving to an SAP product is they have to redesign all of the different data flows that'll come back and forth on a daily basis. And the amount of data is very significant. Even CCA at 60,000 customers, which is about your size, it's a very large volume of data that'll be going back and forth. And each data transaction represents different information that we need. How much energy do they use? What rate is that customer on? Where do they live? All these sorts of information. And so testing as they transition to the new system, that's a whole new database. And so everything from how they code account numbers to how they represent every little bit of information, because all of this has to be done at scale. And so what they're doing right now, and what we just finished helping them test, was a type of transaction called an 814, which is just one of the many data flows that go back and forth. And what they do is that we help them craft what that data looks like. They send it over, and then we say, did this come in as expected? Does this load into the systems correctly? Does this let us do what this transaction is supposed to let us do? And if it doesn't, we go back and say, here's the errors we found in your transaction, and then they iterate beyond that, so that when it comes time to launch, all those various data streams are going to have to go back and forth. We already know that the transaction will be able to process appropriately, that our systems can receive it, that their systems can receive it, and that all the data is flowing as expected, just as one example. Then the core thing that we're really looking at across this, if you pull up a level, is that SDG&E has noted that one of the major failures that could happen throughout this whole transaction is they may not be able to bill customers in a timely or regular manner, because this whole transition is so significant. It really is a once-in-a-generation replatforming. And so the ability to really do the core functional thing that they need to do, especially on your behalf, could be at risk in the sense of being able to do it on a timely basis. And so what we're looking at from a risk management standpoint is, what are all the critical failure points that could happen if we're not getting data from them? Do we have a backup solution that we can, for example, use old data? Can we estimate data? What are the different rules around that one, so that we can still transact in the appropriate way, whatever that data issue may be, with the core goal being to make sure that your customers receive the most service that's uninterrupted so that they get their bills as expected. And importantly for you guys, that revenue is still coming in, you're still able to pay your bills because your energy suppliers are still going to need their money for the energy they provided. And so that the core foundation of that is to make sure that whole transaction system is able to manage all of that accordingly so that you can get revenue, pull it back, bill customers, and also just provide the customer service that people are expecting of you.
Thank you. Real quick. Can you talk to me about the customer experience at the call center in the transition when folks are new customers within the system and what they might expect?
Yes. So what we'll, just from how this whole thing will operate, is that we'll be working with your staff to develop a script. And so that script is a reflection of the language that you want to present to your customers. And so as you're going through your noticing period to let customers know we're your new energy provider, this is a little bit about us. Our call center will have both scripts that represent all the type of information that you want to present to them based on the questions that they have, whether it's a NEM customer or a customer that's on the low-income discount rates. And so we'll work with you to develop a whole voice that represents you and your customers and the type of things that you want to present to them. And that'll be a continued evolution. And we also work to train all of our agents on there's what's specifically in the script, but that can't account for every possible question the customer may have. And so we work with them also on a high-level basis and work collaboratively in real time to help them answer these questions and serving what you want to represent to your customers.
Okay. So it sounds like a good communication, two-way dialogue between CEA and Calpine.
Yes,
what we're looking at.
And CEA is always in the driver's seat on that one, and we're there to support.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate that.
We have another speaker.
Okay.
Gretchen Newsom.
This is, I look up here and I see data management and call center services, and I also see jobs up there. And this might be something that would be taken care of if we had developed a policy beforehand, but now we're hopefully going to develop that policy for workforce issues at a later time. But you're approving this contract today, and I would personally like to know if Calpine would agree to neutrality in the event that their employees or subcontractor employees wish to unionize. It's not mandating the unionization of it, but it's saying if the employees wish to do that they remain neutral. And that's something that we haven't seen done before with utility call centers. SDG&E successfully defeated an effort for their call center employees to unionize. So I would just want to make sure that they're not going to do that and that they would remain neutral.
Thank you very much. Waiting for a head nod from Mr. Brock.
Yes, I can't speak for Calpine. We'll have to take that back, but we have, we have done neutrality agreements in this space. Our vendors do represent 1245 IBEW workers. So yes, I cannot represent today without going back to my counsel, but we are generally supportive of that type of activity.
Okay, that's very good to hear. And we'll be hopefully addressing that further at our workshop as well. So thank you for that. And we'll go ahead and I'll make the motion to approve the recommendations. Second by Councilmember Haviland. Go ahead and vote. And that motion passes unanimously. Move on to item 5.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. The next item before you are activities related to the steps for Clean Energy Alliance's CCA registration process. They include executing a CCA service agreement with SDG&E. The service agreement is a standard CPUC-approved form that it's not a negotiated agreement between CEA and SDG&E. It is actually PUC-approved form that we execute with them, where they lay out the terms and conditions related to providing billing services. We are also required to submit what's known as the CCA bond. There is an interim amount of $100,000 that would need to be paid to the PUC. It is currently under a proceeding that has been decided upon, which would increase it to $147,000. However, the implementation of that decision has been suspended pending the PUC reviewing replies and comments that CCAs had submitted related to that implementation. We do expect the PUC to could act relatively quickly in implementing the higher amount. And so we have in our recommendation that the board approve the higher amount, and then at the time that we would submit the amount applicable. If it's $100,000, we would submit that, but at the point in time that they increased it, we would need to submit that additional $47,000. The funds are placed with the PUC to provide monies available to SDG&E should CEA unexpectedly close its doors and no longer serve customers and return those customers to SDG&E. It's to provide administrative cost support and procurement. The last item is approval of what's draft customer notice. The PUC requires that we provide a copy of a notice that informs customers related to their rights to opt out and also the terms and conditions of Clean Energy Alliance program. The draft notice was modeled after notices that have been recently submitted to the California Public Utilities Commission and approved. The language included on the notice would be included on future customer notices, but they are not our full marketing piece. They are one portion of the mailer to go out, and this is a regulatory compliance requirement. And I do have a sample of, so all of this fine print is the notice. However, I do happen to have a sample of a Solana Energy Alliance notice that included the language, just so you could see how it's incorporated. This represents the PUC approved language, and then on the other side for this particular style is what Solana Energy Alliance communicated to its customers. And at the point in time when we're developing our marketing plan, we'll work with the board to determine how you would like our notices to look, and then we would incorporate the language from the PUC, but also make sure that we're communicating in the way that we want our customers to learn about Clean Energy Alliance and the benefits to the customer for staying into the program. With that, our recommendation is to the board to authorize the execution of the Community Choice Aggregation Service Agreement with San Diego Gas and Electric, approve the payment of the CCA bond in an amount not to exceed $147,000 to the California Public Utilities Commission pursuant to CPUC Resolution E4907, and also approve submittal of the draft customer notice to the Commission pursuant to CPUC Resolution E4907. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that once we go back through the notice that we'll be able to have discussions around Spanish language. I know that there's one line of Spanish, but we'll be able to revisit that for Carlsbad residents, for instance, who only are non-English speakers.
Yes, we have a plan to come back with a full communications and marketing plan and receive input from the board.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Go ahead and move approval. And seconded, Board Member Haviland. We'll go ahead and call the vote. Passes unanimously. Moving on to item 6, our final item. Discuss resolution approving Clean Energy Alliance policies.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. The item before you is the consideration of approval of administrative and confidentiality and privacy policies. There are 5 policies that are being proposed for board consideration. Those include a travel and reimbursement policy, which has been drafted pursuant to Government Code Section 53232.2 and is also based on similar policies of the CE member agencies. So they're very similar to what is currently in use in those cities. And the policy would be applicable to board members, employees, and consultants who are receiving reimbursements for CEA business-related travel. CEA 005 is a collections policy, and it's applicable to, provides procedures on how CEA would handle and procedures we would follow related to uncollectible or uncollected customer charges. They would be applicable to accounts that are no longer being collected by SDG&E. At a point in time, SDG&E is our billing provider and provides collection services as part of that. However, once an account becomes a certain age delinquent, they will remove the charges from the customer's bill and return them to us for collecting on our own behalf. And this policy establishes the procedures we would follow with regards to noticing and sending them to a collection agency. There are 3 policies that address customer confidentiality and privacy policies. The California Public Utilities Decision 12-08-045 establishes very specific rules and requirements related to our processes and procedures for protecting customer information and privacy. The 3 policies have been crafted in pursuant and in compliance with that decision. CEA 002, protection of confidential information, establishes procedures for handling confidential customer data and ensures that employees protect the integrity of confidential information of that data. Privacy policy, CEA 003, addresses procedure for handling customer usage and is applicable to, again, board members, employees, and consultants with regards to handling of energy usage and how we are able to provide it, in what formats we're able to provide it to those that are requesting it. The last policy is advanced metering infrastructure, also known as AMI, data security and privacy. And this establishes our procedures for handling of energy usage that's collected by items known as smart meters or collected in electronic means, and establishes those processes. All of these policies have been reviewed by the General Counsel as well. So our recommendation to the board is that the board adopt a resolution approving policies CEA 001 through CEA 005. I do wish to request that the board make one change to the resolution, which is the title of the resolution. And the title should be amended to reflect, one moment, please. A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Clean Energy Alliance approving travel and reimbursement, customer confidentiality, and privacy policies. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Board Member Haviland.
Just quick clarification on the policy number 3, the privacy and customer confidentiality policy. You said that pertains to board members, but I didn't see board members specifically called out in the policy. I just wanted to make sure that was intentional.
Let me pull up the policy itself. I think it says applicable to CEA, but we can add, the board includes it, we will add specifically call out board members on the policy.
Maybe it's a question for Greg whether or not he feels that's necessary. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that board members were included in that. And if you think it's already clear in the current policy, that's fine. But if not, let's be clear about it.
Well, I think it makes it absolutely clear if we add board members. So I think it's a good idea to add, it would say on section 5.1, CEA, board members, CEA, it's board members, employees, agents, et cetera. So we can make that addition.
Any additional questions, comments? I had one, which is on the first travel and reimbursement policy, 5.10, which is the meals reimbursable meal expenses and associated gratitudes should be moderate. I feel more comfortable actually adding a top line amount to that rather than the flexibility of moderate. So I would say that $30 a meal should be the max out, unless you have different opinions.
I think that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
We're not traveling to Manhattan.
Yeah.
And even there you could find it for $30. So
yeah, I usually spend half of that, but okay. So $30 rather than the should be moderate would be reimbursable meal expenses should not exceed $30 per meal. And then associated gratuities should not exceed 20%.
Okay.
And then appreciate the CEA will not pay for alcohol and personal bar expenses. Keep that in there for sure. All right. So we have consensus on those amendments. Anything else we want to change with the policies? So move approval as amended.
Move approval as amended.
All right, and seconded by Board Member Becker. We'll go ahead and call the vote. And it passes unanimously. All right, that wraps up our agenda. Are there any board member requests for future agenda items? All right, well then we will go ahead. Oh, nope.
I'm sorry, I had a note here. I want to make sure.
Yes.
So I had a question, and I don't know if this is a future agenda request, but as SEA is servicing customers in the interim before they become our customers, I think it's important that if there's any changes in that relationship or any important updates in what's going on with SEA that impacts our future customers, that come back to the board just for education so that we know what's happening with our future customers.
I strongly concur.
Good idea.
Yeah. Because we don't have the opportunity to talk about it except unless we're here. So, yeah.
Okay, we'll be sure to add that as an update if there are changes adopted by the SEA or Solana Beach City Council related to SEA customers.
Thank you.
And then just moving forward, RFQs are a really unique way of being able to take a look at what applicants who want to become business partners with CEA have as far as innovative ideas. So I would like to continue, if we put out RFQs, I would like for the board to continue to receive all copies of the RFQs so that we have the opportunity to review those far in advance of the board meetings as a matter of practice. Mm-hmm. That'll become especially important as we go into heading into a long-term considerations around a technical consultant, for instance, for long-term procurement, et cetera, et cetera. So, Ms. Becker, anything additional?
No, but maybe we can go back to clarification of how we set our agenda items. And it was my impression that our interim CEO has been setting the agenda. I don't know if there was input from our chair or not, but I just wanted to make clear that, maybe just clarify that process because it seemed like there was a little bit of a, do we have a process? Do we want to have a process? I didn't want you to feel that.
I'm under the impression that the process is that it comes up through the staff and the CEO. I just want to make sure that unless it comes from the full board, as far as I'm not going to put anything on the agenda unless I do so here. And I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page that was the case. And if it is, then great.
Yes.
All right. And with that, no additional comments, questions. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.